Welcome to the Elegant Warrior, Simone Knego. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited. Your book was, right before we started, I was telling you that I believe in collecting experiences, and I think I am relatively good at that. But you are the queen of it. It is unbelievable to me. And one of the experiences that you've collected is writing this book. What made you want to write your book, The Extraordinary Unordinary You?
So, when I first started speaking, I didn't realize I had a story to tell. And, right, well, I mean, I really, so my big brand now is about building confidence because I struggled so much with self-doubt that I didn't see that what I was doing was of any value. And that's the honest truth. So, but I did start speaking as on a volunteer basis, and people started asking me, "Do you have a book?" I'm like, "No, I'm not a writer," limiting myself. And then I thought to myself, why not? I love telling stories. Why not put it down in a book? And so I said to my husband, "What do you think?" And he said, "You're an accountant and I can't wait to read it."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's so well written and so great. And you said you love telling stories. I mean, I read every book of every author that comes on, and I take notes. And as I was doing so, this is one of the few times that all I wrote next to each chapter was a story, like Noah, Ghana, different things. And you really are a phenomenal storyteller. Is that something that comes naturally to you? Is it something that you have worked to hone?
So I would say the storytelling comes naturally. I didn't realize, though, that I had that in me. I mean, I have six children, so I tell stories all the time, right? And so I think that's really where it comes from, is being able to tell a story at any time, at any moment of any day.
Yeah, very good. So the book is really, as you mentioned earlier, you are a confidence coach. You teach women specifically, especially, how to step into their confidence and sort of own it. And the whole book is about exactly how to do that. And I thought it was interesting, and also maybe a little reminder for me, that you started the book with talking about patience. Why do you think that why did you begin the book that way?
Because it was something I thought I had, but then realized I didn't have as much as I needed. So I figured that's the best way to start, by showing, okay, this is what I'm really struggling with. And it's real. I think we can all be more patient, no matter what our patience level is.
Yeah, I think that mine is not good. I am definitely, it is the thing that I work to do most. I was talking to someone the other day, and she said, "I just never rush." And I was thinking, I rush myself, and I rush things in my life way too often. And it seems like your son Noah taught you patience. Can you tell the listeners about that?
So Noah is our son he was born in South Korea. We adopted him when he was a baby. Noah's on the autism spectrum. We didn't know that when he was a baby, right? When he cried for the majority of the flight from Seoul to Chicago, we thought it was just because I was new, and I thought that I was doing a bad job. But really what we realized later is that he's on the autism spectrum, and I had to parent completely differently, right? For each child. I mean, it's like herding cats every day, but it was understanding how to parent completely differently, and understanding that what I thought was patience wasn't the patience that I needed for Noah.
Yeah, that's a good point. What we think is patience isn't necessarily what we think is anything, right? What we think is kindness, what we think is, dive into that a little bit deeper. In what kind of patience did you learn with Noah? And then I'll follow up with something.
Yeah. So one of the big things is he's super sensory. He hated to have his teeth brushed once he had teeth. He really doesn't like food. He has about 5 things that he eats. Even today at 19 years old, he cried every time you put him in the car. He cried every time you put him in the bath. He just was so sensory about things. And I'm a fixer, and I couldn't fix it, right? And so that, for me, I was like, okay, well, if I can't fix it, then how do we move forward? And that really was about building patience to say, he's going to cry in the car, and we might be traveling for 3 hours, and he might cry the entire 3 hours. How do I solve that? I get every other kid headphones so that they can watch the screen and not have to hear him cry the whole time. It was very difficult, but again, he's 19 years old, he's at college, and he's doing amazing.
Yeah, it's great. And tell me about, how did that experience and the learning of patience also allow you to learn more confidence?
Yeah, I think that patience is such a big part of everything we do, right? If we can, for example, I was in the Starbucks drive-through line the other day, and maybe I was driving a little slower than normal, but the woman behind me instantly hit her horn at me. And we live in a place that people don't honk horns here. So it was really funny to me. I mean, I was like, okay, that's curious. So I got up to the window and I paid for her drink, and I asked the cashier to let her know that patience is a virtue. And, who knows if the person said it to them or not, but how she took it. But it's just a reminder that it's part of building confidence, is understanding that we have to learn different things all of the time, right? It's a skill that you need to build. And when we talk about patience, it's also something that we have to build. We're not just naturally born patient. We have to work on it, and to remind ourselves that some of the things that are happening that we make into a big deal might not be that big of a deal. And we can take a breath and slow down without getting upset about so many different things that we tend to do.
Yeah, it's such a good point. It's funny because at first, when I was reading your book, I was thinking, how does patience impact confidence? And one of the things that it reminded me of is, sometimes when I'm being impatient, it's because I don't believe that I'm going to get the thing I want, or that I'm going to be able to do the thing, or that if I don't do it fast, it won't get done. It's belief, and it's confidence in myself, and sort of confidence in God or the universe or whatever, that things are going to work out okay. And so I recognized how much my impatience can be directly tied to my lack of confidence in something. And so it really was, to me, a great way to start a book that's sort of based in that idea, and really good. And I imagine with 6 children, there's lots of opportunities for that patience muscle to be tested.
Oh, constant. Even now that right now we have one child left at home. We could potentially be empty nesters next year, but I get a call every day from almost every kid, and there's always something happening that I need to fix, right? And so, or I need to listen, and sometimes it's just the listening part, right? And not getting frustrated and not being judgmental. And so, yeah, it's a big part of everything that we do.
Yeah, so good. So another chapter that I really like. So here in The Elegant Warrior, I talk a lot about choice, because the root of the word elegant is to choose, just like the root of the word elect. And there's a lot about choices that allow you to become a better advocate for yourself, and all of the things we talk about. In chapter 3, you talk a lot about choices. And I made a note about Alex Borstein. Am I saying that?
Borstein.
Borstein.
Yes.
Can you tell I knew that story, but I had forgotten it. But I think the listeners might not all know it.
Yeah. So she actually told this story at an acceptance speech. I think it was an Emmy Award. And she was talking about her grandmother, that she had been taken into a concentration camp. And as they were waiting in line, she realized that she was not going to survive this. And so basically she said to the guard with the gun, like, what's going to happen? And he said, well, I might not shoot you. I mean, the exact story is, but you'll eventually be shot. And so she decided to step out of line anyways. And so she stepped out of line, she took off, and she survived. And Alex is only here today because her grandmother stepped out of line. So her big thing is, her message so often is step out of line. Don't do the things that you're told to do when you know it's not the right thing to do. Like, take a chance, go ahead and take a risk.
Yeah. And those choices, those little choices, and in that case, a very big choice. And, her choice, and then the guard's choice not to shoot her.
Right.
And,
Right.
all of those choices are constantly impacting our lives. And again, why don't you talk about how that impacts confidence?
So if we're not willing to try things, I think that's a big part of confidence, is being willing to try. Now, that's a different situation where you're like, okay, am I going to die if I walk in here, or are they going to shoot me anyway? So let me see what I can do. But in terms of building confidence, so much of it is about being willing to try things, not being afraid of failure, not being afraid of the risk that's involved with things, because if we don't try, we'll never know, right? And pushing ourselves past our comfort zone is really a big part of building confidence, because if we do the same thing every day, we don't grow, right? If we're constantly not testing our limits. And that's why I think it's so important that we try, we move forward, and we make those decisions to take a risk, because then when we realize, oh, wait, that wasn't so bad. I feel pretty good right now.
Yeah, it's funny. In my work, I talk a lot about evidence and evidence as a source of confidence. And the fact that when you take those chances, when you choose to do those things, you are creating evidence that you are a risk taker, that you are capable. And even if you fail, that you can handle failure, And so if we choose to stay the same, the only evidence we're creating is that we can stay the same.
Yeah.
But if we choose to do those things, you start to expand and see all the things that you're capable of. I love that. Now, in the next chapter about You Only Get One Life, you told the story about Mili. Am I saying that name correctly?
Yes, Mili.
To tell the listeners that story.
So, which part of the story? I have so many stories about Mili.
How it applies to only having one life, having one life.
Yeah, so we adopted Mili when she was 2.5 years old, and she is from Ethiopia, and she had been through a lot. She had kwashiorkor, which is a protein deficiency where you get the extremely distended abdomen. She had giardia. She had ringworm all over her scalp. She had a fire burn on her belly, like missing a toenail, fingernail. There are so many things happening for her. She's the one that's still at home. She's our grand finale. That's what we like to call her, because she just lights up any room that you walk into. And I think that's so true of how we move forward in our lives, that we only have one life to live, right? So why not do everything we can, right? Why not? And my husband and I always say we want to slide into home base, right? We don't want to leave anything on the line. We really want to try as many things as we can. And with Mili, right? It's interesting because that's her personality now, right? She is truly the epitome of a leader. I was asked to give the convocation speech at her senior convocation. And it's kind of funny because I said to her, "What do you think?" And she said, "Why would they ask you?"
What about you?
And I said, "Well, because I'm a speaker." She goes, "But you're a parent." And I was like, I understand that, but they asked me, and they actually asked me based on the book talking about you can't move mountains. You don't have to move mountains. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, getting herself called out multiple times in that, she was like, I don't want to hear any more about myself, right? Yes. But it has been the most amazing experience to have this family that I've learned so much from, and watching her have such a rough beginning turn into this, again, she's this incredible leader and such a happy human being that I know is going to make incredible change in the world because of who she is.
Yeah, so great. You mentioned that you don't have to move mountains. You climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
I did.
Tell the listeners about what motivated that and how that led to more confidence.
So I'm not a climber. I live in Florida. I have 16 steps in my home. That's about it. I've gone camping a couple of times. So it wasn't a bucket list item. It was more of a friend of ours had done it the year before, asked my husband if he was interested in doing it. My husband basically said, 1, 2, 3, no, thank you. Call Simone. He doesn't tell the story the same way. But, and they did. And I said yes. And for a long time, I had said yes to things because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, right? I called myself the yes girl, always didn't want to disappoint anybody. But this yes was really a different kind of yes. This was something, again, to take me out of my comfort zone. It was a time where I was really struggling, trying to figure out like what my purpose was in the world. I was 42 years old and I had 6 children at the time, but I still felt like I wasn't doing enough. And it was life-changing for me. The work that I do now, a huge part of it came because of that experience and understanding that when we put in a goal and we do the work, and it's something that we really want, we can accomplish it. And that's really such a big part of my life today. And it's funny because people are like, oh my gosh, you climbed a mountain. I could never do that. And my question is always, would you want to? No, I wouldn't want to. So use those words, because our words matter, right? As soon as you say you can't do something, right, it makes your brain believes that you can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is such a good example of collecting and creating evidence. You know, when you do something that big, I often say I lost 100 pounds when I was young. And I often say that I am glad I lost the weight, but also glad I had the weight to lose, because it created so much evidence that I can do hard things and I can depend on myself, and I react to challenges by coming back again, and I'm resilient. And I would imagine the mountain is the exact same thing. You have so many things that proves to you that you can go back to look at. What do you say to people who don't want to climb a mountain, but do want to do a mountain in their lives to sort of take that first step?
Yeah, it's really about asking yourself what you want, which is a very hard question, especially for women, because a lot of times we've led our lives doing everything for everybody else. And we're like, oh, wait, what do I want? And it is a kind of self-reflection exercise, looking back to when you were younger, when you were a kid. That kid still exists in there, right? So think back about the things that you always said that you were going to do, and take small steps. It's not go out and climb a mountain. Maybe you've always wanted to run a 5K, but you've never felt like you had the time to put into it. You schedule the time. And I think that's true of so many of the things that I've done in my life now, is that I schedule the time, and I don't wait for someone else to say, oh, you're doing a good job, or for them to say, don't you think you're being selfish? Because I had that with Kilimanjaro. People said, don't you think it's really selfish to leave your family at home when you go climb a mountain? And my response is always, self-care is never selfish.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point. I think the selfish thing is something that so many of us struggle with. And so we don't do the things that make us confident. And lack of confidence is definitely selfish, especially for the people who love you, because you can't step into the fullest version of yourself until you have the confidence to do so. I think that part of the book was probably the most sort of dramatic for me to see where that confidence comes from. But you have in the book in a chapter about perspective and seeing different perspectives, you talk about the things you've done. You were a horse farmer, you were a CPA, you've climbed these mountains. I mean, you really do collect experiences. What is the impetus behind that? What makes you want to go out and do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing?
Well, now it's because I really want to try new things. Before, I think it was because I couldn't figure out who I was, right? I tried so many different things because it wasn't that I was unhappy. It was that I, again, didn't think I was making a difference. Like, what is my value? What is my purpose? What is my worth? And for a long time, I tried to connect it with everything else. Like, my value is only based on how my kids are doing, right? Or my value is only based on whatever is happening at home. And, I would talk about myself, and I would use I call it a 4-letter word, the word just, right? I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just Rob's wife, really justifying my existence, which is crazy to think because there's so many different things that I was doing that was making a difference in the world.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it really does. I like that you call just a 4-letter word, because it really is, when we use that word, we are demeaning ourselves. And as you mentioned earlier, our brains are hearing that. So it's really important. What's the next experience you want to collect?
Oh boy.
Do you have a list?
So I don't actually have a list. I'm writing my second book, which comes out in February, and that one is called Real Confidence, a simple guide to go from unsure to unshakable, using my real method, which is respect yourself, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and live without limits. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really focused on speaking and writing and podcasting. I have a podcast with my 22-year-old daughter, which is a blast. I just had shoulder surgery 8 weeks ago, so I'm not thinking about any kind of challenges that would involve any body parts right now.
Keep the body parts in
yes,
place.
Yes.
Yeah, it's and your podcast. Let's talk a little bit about that. What made you want to do it? You have 6 kids. Was it that particular daughter who said, "Let's do this," or did you just feel like it was a connection that you wanted to share with the rest of the world? Really?
So Olivia, who I have the podcast with, she was diagnosed with Crohn's when she was 16 years old, and so she struggled a lot with anxiety, struggled a lot with confidence, and we started realizing that the conversations that we would have really helped her a lot. And she was like, I think we should start recording these. So we would have conversations about anything that she was struggling with at the time. And really the goal was, because it's called Her Unshakable Confidence, is to help her build unshakable confidence. And it really has been, again, evidence. It was an experiment and it's gone really well. And she's learned so much about herself, and having us have differing opinions on stuff is really fun to see. And she's a second-year law student, and she was actually at an event the other night, and they asked her, like, how do you have the confidence to just get up in front of the class and just start speaking, because they call on them randomly? And she's like, because of my podcast, because I've learned so much about how to just answer a question, whatever comes at me. And I think that it's such a good learning lesson for her life moving forward, is that because anything that comes at her, she can really answer.
Without a doubt. I mean, I've listened to the podcast, and she's so, and you talk about her Crohn's in the book. One of the things that I love that you talk about in the book with her Crohn's is that you gave her some time to wallow, and she sort of gave herself a short, you left it to her. Tell us about that.
So it was a really hard time because she was diagnosed at the end of 2019, and then COVID hit the beginning of 2020, right? So she lost her whole senior year basically because she was sick at first and then COVID. So one of the things we talked about when she was diagnosed is that, and I've seen this with so many people, where something happens in their life and they don't move forward. And I think it's very important that you listen to yourselves. When something happens, you have to show the emotions. You have to feel the emotions. You can't just stuff it down. I stuffed things down for years and it didn't get me anywhere. So I think that was such a big part of saying, okay, you got to feel the emotions. Like, you can be angry, be sad, cry it out, whatever, scream about it. But then you need to pick a day that you're going to move forward on. And that's up to you. Please don't pick it 2 years from now, because that's way too long. Yeah. But pick a day and then say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on the negative parts. Let me see how I can move forward. And that's really how she approached that. And that's how she's approached pretty much every obstacle. And I see that with my other kids too. The obstacles that have come in front of her, to say, okay, how do I move forward now? And I don't want to feel like this all the time. I don't want to feel negative all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she ended up picking, like, I'm going to stop on Sunday. Like,
she was quick.
It out for a month.
No.
But I think that is, when I read about that, I thought, what a great idea that is to even say to yourself. Because if if I'm having one of those days, something's happened and I'm like wallowing in it, and I say to myself, well, you can wallow, but pick a day when it's going to end. It's not like I'm going to say, well, I want to be like this for a week. I'm going to pick a day that is soon, and then allow yourself to feel the feelings. I think it's a great suggestion for all of us to allow yourself to feel it, and then pick a day, a real day, like Thursday,
right,
that it's going to end, and then hold yourself to that. It's such great advice. The book is chock full of great advice. It is stories, so it reads very easily, but it really does resonate with being patient, embracing every day, climbing the mountains, all of the things. Simone, I can't wait for the next book to come out. We'll have you back on when it does.
Thank you.
If you had just one piece of advice, the people listening who are like, oh, this confidence idea, I know I need some. What's one thing they can do today that is bound to improve that part of their lives?
So I have a little gimmick that I like to use. I call it Control-Alt-Delete. So back in the day, that's what we would use to restart our computers, and I use this for my mindset. So anytime, I'm not saying you can control the thoughts that come into your mind, but once they're there, you can control what happens to them, right? So that's the control part of saying, is this real? Is this not? This is probably not real. So let me figure out what I can do with that thought. The next part is Alt, which is pick an alternative. Instead of saying, what if I fail? When I succeed, instead of saying, I can't, I can, right? Because again, there is a lot of science about how you talk to yourself, how that affects you, how you feel about yourself, and how it affects your brain. Yeah. And the last part is delete the things that don't serve you, right? Delete the comparison game, delete the belief that you're not enough. And you can do it in the moment. That's what I like to do when I'm struggling with something. I'm okay, Control Alt delete it, just get it out of there because it's not real. And let me see how I can move forward. And what it goes back to is the idea that I don't believe that we need to change who we are. We need to change the way we see ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. The perspective is everything. And you have that whole chapter on perspective in the book.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? I will put links to the book in the show notes, and I put links to the podcast in the show notes. Is there anything else you want me to send people to?
But my new book, so that would be exciting. And then my website, SimoneKnego.com. And as of now, I'm the only Simone Knego in the world until someone else names their child after me, which would be a very exciting day. So even if you spell it wrong, you can find me.
We will spell it right, and we will put a link in the show notes, guys, so that you can find it. The book is phenomenal. It's The Extraordinary Unordinary You. Simone, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.